to maybe do more with certain portion of the entire pipeline. So we will showcase that. Yep. So let's keep this interactive. We will maybe pause certain parts of the way, and then you'll see how we want to run it. Yeah. Want to start first?
You're going to flash your book first?
No. No. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, as Larry mentioned, we had this topic because we heard this kind of. Okay, my name is Dinesh. Okay, my name is Dinesh. Okay, so we are part of the team. So this topic was like suggested by the members actually to show how we can do this testing and why it's important, and how can you do this automated testing to ensure the kernel is safe to use in your production environment. Okay. Of course, we will have a short demo and of course the Q&A part. Okay. So why we need to test it? Because it's already tested. The developers tested, the dad tested, and everyone tested. So why we need to test it again? Because you have some standard in your organization, right? So this the kind of major points here. So we have to ensure the code can be the playbook, it can be the modules, it can be the plugins or anything inside your collection should be clean to use in your environment. Okay, you have to ensure there is nothing wrong with that kind of. So it's not just the syntax or it's not just the operation we are doing. Okay. So the next one is to ensure we are following the best practices in the development of your playbook, modules, or the action plugins or the plugins, any plugins. Then you have to ensure the functional is doing in the right way. Maybe this is like adding some kind of a resource in your cloud, or maybe some kind of operation in your switch or network device. We want to ensure we are doing it the right way. Okay. Or one more thing is to ensure it's not one developer doing the steps. It can be multiple developers. We have to ensure everyone follow the same standard, like a style book or style sheet or something like that. So we can create our own rules, we can create our own styles, and we can create a rule. It should be like this. The variable name should be like this. So these kind of things can be done inside our playbook and also the modules and all. Okay. So the message is very simple. Treat your Ansible core, anything like a software, test it, clean it, and use it in your environment. So there are many tools and methods available for testing Ansible and Ansible other contents. So we have a tool called ansible-test. It's part of the Ansible core and Ansible, whatever, whenever you install Ansible, you get it by default like Ansible Galaxy. Then we have YAML. This is just a YAML linting tool. Then we have a Ansible playbook with a syntax check and check options. This can be used. Then we have any codeweb plugins to find the slot task or issue task while checking, so we can use that plugins as well. Then we have a tool called Molecule as well. Okay. So Ansible test, we have multiple options to do the test here. So the first one, you can see the sanity test. Actually, these tests to ensure the code is clean. So we call it the SCA or static code analysis, right? So this is similar to the other software code like Java or anything like that. So you can use Ansible test for sanity and ensure our code is clean. There is no kind of a operation or line is causing some trouble for your environment. Okay, you can create the rule. There are default rules, but you can add more rules to ensure this is clean. Then we have integration test to ensure you have different parts in your collection or your project to ensure this is working in the right way, like similar to your software code. Then you have a unit test to ensure your individual modules or individual parts are working fine. So we have one tool available, and you can use the same tool for all these tests. So you can create your own unit test for your Ansible content. Okay. The resources are available online. You can see that the Ansible test, all the links and some nice blogs. Okay.
Are you able to share the slides later?
Yes, we can. Yeah. So this is a very simple test output. You can see we have removed some portions here. It's just doing the sanity test here using Ansible test command. So you can see it's doing the sanity test. It will try all the operations, whatever you written in your rule book. So you know the Ansible rule book, the rules inside. You will use the default one if you don't put anything. So you can see it shows some error. Okay, whether the dependency is not available, whether the dependency got any issue, and also it will show the exact path of that file or the Python script. Yeah, it's easy to find, okay, which one is causing the issue. And it will give you the result, whether it's a fatal error or warning, or it's like should not go to that. Let's say if you know it's a known bug or something, you can skip, you can add the exclusion for that. Okay. So this is one method. Another one is Ansible unit test. So this is mainly for, let's say maybe we have a bigger team, you have multiple members working on the project for developing this. You cannot wait for others to finish the work. So if there's a place you can use a unit test. So you develop your own part, test it before you push it to the common repository or something like that. So this is already available. Very useful when you develop the content to ensure, okay, you are developing the right way with the right content, right rules are following. This is another tool available. It's called Ansible Molecule. So it can be used as a command line, or you can use this tool with the virtualized environment like Docker, Podman, or even Vagrant actually. I think Vagrant also supported. You have to check that. With the Ansible execution environment, you can utilize this. We have more news, I think, coming, not now, later. Hopefully we can share later. So Molecule is very common, very commonly used tool actually. So if you check the documentation, very nice. You can find all the options, how to check, how to integrate with your pipeline, how to integrate with your development environment and all. I will not go in detail for that. So for Molecule, it's very simple. Actually, when you create a role with the Molecule, it's still using the Ansible Galaxy in the backend. And it will also insert the Molecule portion inside the role. So you can see when we create a role, it's just creating the role, plus it will also include some Molecule portion inside the role. So you can see the rules, some kind of information. You can configure that how you want to use the Molecule for your role, and testing can be automated. Okay. Okay. So this is another option. It's not an Ansible way. It's the common way we use for any collaborative software development. It's called the pre-commit. You can configure the pre-commit. So if you are familiar with the pre-commit project, you know better. So you can configure the pre-commit configuration and ensure, okay, no bad code or bad content will go to the repository or master repository. So you can, you have options to configure it. Okay, what are the rules? What are the rules should be applied, or what should be skipped or excluded, and so on. And you will get the result like that. So when you do the git commit, git push, you will get this error. So you won't be able to commit the codes. So you won't be able to commit the bad code to the repository until you clean it. You cannot. But you can, of course, skip or exclude the content. Okay. Now, this is another method we use for finding the slow tasks actually, because when we develop multiple, if you have integrate parts, right? If you have multiple components and you don't know which play or which task or which role is causing the issue. Maybe the role is developed by some other person. You don't know what is inside. You are using the role in your playbook or something like that. Then you need to find which task is causing the delay or which is taking more time, or kind of, so you can enable the callback plugins in your inventory or in your configuration and use that, so you will get more detailed result. It's not the debug output, it's a callback plugin giving you the details like the time taken, which one is a slow task, or the profiling details like how much CPU taken, how much memory taken, and all. Okay, so those are the tools actually. So we have more automated methods, I think, and then you can share what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Girish. I want to check, anybody have tried or used any of these tools before? Anyone to share like experiences? Yeah. Just want to ask. Yeah.
I did the profiling for a dynamic inventory. I referred to your article for on the Red Hat website. I think you had some 8 techniques to.
Yeah, I think that's the admin one.
Yeah. And the thing that I learned from that exercise was the dynamic inventory was pulling the data from a REST API. And that was an expensive call.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was taking like MBs of data in that sense because of the list of inventory that I have. And the only solution there was to cache it in one or the other way, like in a text file, just clean it, cache it for some time and just use that file.
But even with the filtering, it's taking the same time, right?
Yeah, because the backend server, even if you asynchronize the Python code, which is what the dynamic inventory is using, it wasn't giving enough results. And when you async the code, not many people will like it.
Okay.
Because the async libraries in Python are like super complicated. But yeah, that was one. But I do have a question on the molecule side of things. I tried it in the past, but I think we need more in terms of like the real life use cases as to how to get started from scratch.
Okay.
Right? Because right now, I feel the barrier there is just getting started.
Okay.
Right? Maybe if we can get something just to kick off and then iterate on that, it will be better.
Okay, how to start molecule testing and how to
Yeah,
use
like if you have a repo, for example. So I'm a network engineer, so I deal with a lot of network devices, routers, switches, and all of that. Now I know Molecule exists, and just to give you some context, right? The part that I was trying to fix with Molecule was if I have duplicate IP addresses in my YAML files, for example, I had no idea about how do I cache those duplicates, right? And then I researched and I got, okay, so Molecule can do this catching of duplicates, but the barrier looked very high to just get started and do something.
So the documentation is not that nice, you're saying, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? If you have an example repo that I can just clone it and start, then that becomes a little more.
I think we can work on it in that case. Or maybe you can let us know a very more specific use case, right? Because yours seems to be network related and it seems to be from a real environment. So probably that will make more sense for us to try and work on it.
Thanks
you know what will solve your problem? AI. Really? Duplicate IP address. Come on, how easy it is to solve, right? Right, like tell the AI, look out for all the duplicate IP address. 3 seconds.
But you're going to share everything. But you're going to share everything. To AI.
Yeah. No, of course you don't go chat GPT. You go to Red Hat.
Thanks for sharing.
One use case, one use case. Yes. Very business critical use case, very important, right?
Yeah, I have one more question about the molecule. So you said it's using Ansible Galaxy, right? So
no, I mean when you initiate when you initiate the role, in the backend it's still Ansible Galaxy kind of.
So
but when you use the actual one, actually it's already inside for you. So Molecule, when
it'll be inside that.
It will look for that.
See over here that the role itself is going to have Molecule, right? Then under the default folder, you need to define the Molecule YAML that says
the rules that you use between them have converged and verified for testing.
Yeah.
The rule.
But still we need to connect to internet, right? So
Well,
No.
no, you
No.
don't necessarily need to have it.
So it's an offline creation, right? You're
Because
just
you can always pull down the collection or the
Okay.
control.
Yeah.
Just do it offline. But yeah, we agree that the documentations are not really a lot in this case. In fact, we were looking at some of the things when we were researching. You can have things back in 2020 where there are some blogs, and now it's a bit different because back then we don't really have this Ansible core concept, right? So yeah, agree on that. Maybe we can feedback to BU as well. just
Yeah,
to
I think the
have
molecule
more
is-
blogs written for this.
and I think the
newer
molecule
one.
is still based on the role. I think not yet the collection
Correct.
level yet. I think it's a good feedback.
Those are things that we have to we'll try to feedback as well. I think that's good discussions and good points.
Thanks.
I will try and go quickly over this portion and then we'll just look at some of the stuff that we were doing, right? I'm not sure whether we have shown this before, but this are all the different components of the platform, right? There is the controller, the execution environment, where we are able to. This is basically the execution plane, right? So you run the playbooks and leverages on the containers to run the content. The builder itself, right? Some of these things we will be showing later, right? When we can use the builder to build the image and then we push it to the automation hub. So those are things that can be done over here. So we talk about the content collections, right? So it's really a distribution format for Red Hat, where we can have different things inside. You can have the playbooks, or you can have the modules inside. You can also have things like the roles and the plugins around that. So the reason for showing this is because I think some people are more used to the old format of Ansible, where everything is kind of inside the Ansible bundle. Over here, we are using collections. And it can actually be a much more easier way to distribute the content itself. So in this case, like what we were showing, you can have things like modules, playbooks, roles. We could use that, use those things, right? And there are also very different frameworks for the content distribution itself. So I think a lot of people are probably aware of the stuff that's coming from the community, right? But we also have this thing from the supported content. So those are the certified content that's coming from Red Hat and the partners. We do use some of these things to do the actual deployment itself. Whereas from here, this could be something that we can use for doing development work. The validated content is something that is newer, right? It's coming as something that you could actually use for the production network with the validated stuff that's coming from Red Hat. Then we also talk about things like signing, right? You are able to also sign content these days just to make sure that this is really what you're looking at, because we are really talking about things like shifting left, right? So the same thing applies for the content and the collections that we are trying to use within the environment. You can sign them to make sure that things are able to be verified and traceable. So some differences, more than 2.10, right? Anything that's beyond the 2.9 Ansible release, we are using Ansible Core. It has the built-in modules, about 200 over. So those things will come itself. The main core functionalities for things like within the Linux and the Windows environment itself. Then those are things that we will be using when it comes to the Ansible core content. So then we will use collections to add on to it, right? So whenever we have more things that we need to do, we will leverage on the collections and we build a new image using Ansible Builder from that perspective. So this is just to show the differences. After that, we started changing the naming convention as well, right? So you can see over here that Ansible 4X kind of matches the core 2.11, and these days it keeps on moving. Right? We are at the AAP version is going to be 2.14, right? So over here we have different components, the controller itself, and then we have the hub where it stores things like the collections as well as the images for using the for the execution environment image to use. So you can see over here that the runtime will be things like the Ansible call with all the relevant Python and module dependencies that we'll be using. And if you were to break down the collections requirements, it will be things like this, whereby we can specify the namespace with the collection name and whether we are importing a row, right? So then this case, we can specify the version as well. So with all these things, you are actually going to make it easier for you to do development work because you could do your own collections creation and importing them as you need. So the hub itself, as what we mentioned, you can store the collections. You can take a look at the hub later on, right? And then you have the execution environment that has information that will help you to run the particular label. Right, so when the developer writes the code, you could use Ansible Galaxy Collection init to create a structure, a skeleton, and after which we can also install the things which is already available today. We are able to test the code locally wherever possible, right? Then we will do a push of the code to Git repository server, right? So those are some of the commands that you'll be typically using. Other things that was mentioned by Ginesh earlier, right, was things around like ansible-test, lint, molecule. We can use a navigator, which is the equivalent of Ansible playbook to go and run the CLI. After which, when we talk about things like automated testing, building, publishing to the hub, we are using things like ansible-test to go and perform things like unit testing as well as integration testing, right? And after which, the admin is able to promote or to publish as required, right? So those are things that can be done when it comes to the manual content creation from hub. So the change control really will be handled by the admin themselves. Right, so then over here, we are talking about using Git pipelines to go and manage the content itself. Right? So we want to be able to develop and promote the collection code from dev to production by using pipelines. So if you look at how it can look like, right, we have things like pre-commit linting from the repo, we test the content, and then we test to just make sure that everything is working properly. We have things like the Ansible linting to ensure that the best practices are being followed from a pre-commit phase. We can do linting, after which we can do molecule-based testing. So of course, I think this is the portion that we'll probably have to have more articles on, just to make sure that the users are able to understand how we can leverage on this project itself. And after which we can use Ansible-test to do unit testing, integration testing as well. So this is kind of how this automated testing can be done from a pipeline perspective. So over here, we can leverage on different capabilities. So of course, from a Red Hat perspective, we have things like the Tekton, right? So we can use the OpenShift pipelines to run CI. You can also use things like GitHub Actions. You can use, of course, Jenkins, or you can use GitLab CI/CD to perform the required testing itself. So all the customizations can also be made within the pipeline, right, for you to do those kind of testing. Just wanted to point out that, of course, you can also use your own CI/CD toolings. Even though we talked a lot about things like Tekton, right, within the Red Hat context, but there's nothing stopping you from using other toolings to perform the test. So we'll just go to a very quick demo. But maybe before that, any questions from anyone? Okay. So I think as what Ginesh mentioned, we can, in this case, we are actually using things like the VS Code to do the code development. So you can see over here that we have different structures over here in terms of the pre-commit config YAML, right? We have things like the Git attributes. I also have things related to the Ansible configurations and other config that's hidden, right? So when you want to do things like development itself, right? For instance, like in this case, we can see the YAML-lint. So those are also things that we will be defining, so that if the line is too long, you want to make sure that the last practice is to make sure that we will fill this as well. Right. So one of those things that you will see later on is that if the indentation is not done properly, you will actually fail the checks when it comes to the linting portion, right? So then you will just check all this and make sure that things are being done in the right way. So some of the stuff that is being ignored in this case, right, could be the vault.yaml, because in this case we are already using the Ansible bot to do the encryption. Then the other things that we have over here will be things like the pre-commit configurations as well. We have the pre-commit hooks that's being set up where we will check on this particular profile that we have and whether or not everything is working properly. You can see over here that we're checking for things like trailing white spaces, for instance, and use it to fix it. Right. So those are different configurations that could actually be done when the developer is trying to create the playbook itself, right?
And where are the hooks coming from? Like, where's the source of the hooks?
Right, so you can actually see that this is the pre-commit repo that we are using. Yeah. And then we are also using the ansible-lint to go and do the. So these are stuff that we do before. So if there's any issues with the playbook, you cannot even commit. So there are a few ways to do it. Of course, is that if you want to do it in a very strict sense, whereby you check the whole thing, make sure that everything is in proper formatting before you allow it to go into Git. If not, you fix everything until it's good. So that's kind of where we are heading for this particular approach. So if not, of course, you can always check in, but then it may not be in a nice format. So other things that we have over here, like the Git attributes, for instance. Right. So then these are just what are the attributes that we have. So then, we have written a lot of different files inside here, right? So it's all inside the playbooks that we have. I need to remove some of the artifacts. Right, so those are some of the things that we actually have inside here, right? So just so that it's not so okay. Right, so I have 3 playbooks that is inside here that we are using for this particular demo. Essentially, where we are coming from is that we could use all these capabilities that is available over here to just make sure that the formatting and everything is correct, right? So then we will also be able to use ansible-lint to go and check on this. So even before you check in the codes, you can see that these are all the problems that's happening with the format that is there for the playbook itself. Right? Some of these things like there's no handler, so you expect you to use handler when you have, let's say, a change that's coming that requires a restart of service, for instance. So those are stuff that can be checked out by the system itself, right? So other things that, of course, can handle, right, is like the no row prefix, the key order is all having issues and things like that. And if you were to deliberately introduce an error as well, right? So then we have many different ways of stopping you as well. So we did mention around the fact that this whole structure itself has to be nicely formatted. If I were to just remove the last line, and then I run the lint again. So you will just show some of the errors as well over here. right? So those are also things that will all get thrown out from here. I think I've ignored something from here. 1 second.
It's removed, but I think it's in the ignore list.
Yeah, it's in the ignore list. Right. So those are also stuff that we have been doing. So it's inside the ignore list. That's why it's not showing. But those are the formatting things that was actually being done in this case. Right. Okay. So if you want to fix these things later on, right, there's always a way. So for instance, like we can always say that, hey, I want to ignore some of these errors that is coming in. Right. So then you can say that these are all the stuff that we want to ignore, right? We will say that, hey, these are things that I'm aware of, but I just want to fix it in the future, right? Right, so then he will only show you things like warnings saying that, hey, these files have some problems, but I'll allow you to get through. So one of those things that we could actually show over here is that it actually stops you from committing as well. If you were to have this thing commented out, right? So then let's say if you have this readme where you're making a change, you just say test 1, 2, 3, and you do a git add. So automatically, it's not going to allow you to even commit the code. So you cannot even push into the repository from that perspective. So then those things are what you can actually do to just ensure that all the formatting and everything is being done properly before you actually check in all these codes itself. And if you were to just remove this, right, now everything will pass, right? So those are ways that you could actually do it. And of course, if you wanted to use things like a pipeline, you can also use it just using things like the OpenShift pipeline, right? In this case, we have Tekton. So the same thing can be done over here, for instance, right? We do a git code, right? Just to pull down the git from the repository that I'm using. In this case, this is my repo. Right, and if the information has problems, right, we will be able to just show the problem with the syntax, and then it's going to fail the pipeline itself. And so those are things that we could actually do from here. And so it's the same kind of stuff that you can achieve, be it using the manual testing, or you can use things like pipeline to do that test. So this is actually the pipeline itself. The things that we are trying to do here is to do things like what we call as configuration as code. I think a lot of you would probably have used Ansible Controller before, but you would have to go and do the configurations a lot of times by yourself by clicking in information that's needed in order to create a job template or to create a credentials or to go and create a project. So those things are typically being done from a UI perspective. But what we are doing over here is we are trying to say that we could actually use a configuration as code approach to define all the configurations that's needed for the automation hub, for the Ansible controller, and to also use it to build image and publish it over to the hub itself and make sure that it only goes through when things are working properly. Right. So some of those things that you will see, for instance, right, is the attributes that we are actually setting. For instance, I'm trying to do what I call as a config as code. So we are able to use collections that is coming from Red Hat, right? So for instance, the infra.controller configurations is able to set up the configurations for the controller. And we can also say things like what kind of groups you want in Automation Hub, right? The kind of credentials that we have actually set up. For instance, like if I wanted to create a Automation Hub token user, what are all the information that will come in the Automation Hub certified published community? All the definitions that's needed for that automation controller can all be defined and described as YAML files. And these things can then be consumed by the pipeline itself, right? So quite a fair bit of stuff that can actually be done. You can also do things relating to the job template, for instance. You don't have to go to the GUI and click, but you could actually do things like just build the execution environment image as a job template. You can then say that the environment that you're using, execution environment, using the supported EE image, what credentials you're using for this particular job template and things like that. So the whole controller itself is defined from that perspective, including the automation hub. So we just wanted to show very quickly, for instance, that you could actually just run the whole pipe and that everything is just going to come back as it is, right? So if I were to come here, this was the image that exists within the environment. We can do things like delete. Right, and then I can also do things relating to the users. I can remove that super user itself, right? So it does all the configurations for you. And then over here, it will be things like the controller itself when we have the password. Okay. Okay, yeah, I have the the password itself, just give me a second. So you can see, for instance, that we could do something like deleting everything over here, right? Or coming to the projects, delete the project itself, delete away the inventory. It can even be coming to the user side. I don't actually have to delete this because these are by default, it's there, right? So some of these things like credentials, we can also come over here and delete away things like here. All these things can all be deleted, for instance, right? And just by having all the information inside the YAML file, we will be able to restore all the information that is being created over here in this case. So what really happens over here is that we can come over to the pipeline and we just have to so when we do a start, right, it will actually ask you for things like the repo link where we are collecting from the shared data volume or the credentials that we have. We have already done that in the previous round. We just reuse the information from the previous environment itself. It's going to start running the pipeline. It goes and pull all the information. It does things like ansible-linting. It checks the basic things. And after which it's going to just push all the configurations into the controller, the hub, building the image, everything done within one shot, just by having this and from this perspective, it's just going to build a new image and push it to the hub, right? So it actually goes and run all the commands that's needed in order to set up the instance from scratch. So some of these things are quite useful because I think a lot of people sometimes are asking, how do you do things like HA? But if you have a GitOps way of doing things, you don't actually require you to really go and build that HA instance. Whereas if you were to have to go and take care about the HA for the databases, that will be the more traditional way of doing things. But we're talking about how we can actually use a GitOps way of doing it, coupled together with things like the ansible-lint and some of the other things that maybe include Molecule, for instance, right, to do that best practice when it comes to creating the Ansible content itself. So these are the things that is going on. It pushes over to the automation hub. If we were to come back over here, you can see that this was actually being pushed in just a few seconds ago. So these are all driven from pipeline. Even if you lose the entire VM, right, this thing will just come back after you run that the pipeline itself. So then this is really around things like how do we actually configure the hub to just this actually takes a while, right? You will create things like the user, and then it also gets the hub to go and sync the repository with the upstream, right? So then those informations will all get thrown in over here. So it just takes a while to run.
I think while that is running, right, I think just now you showed the pipeline itself that potentially you can put for linter as well as maybe molecule. Is that something that you feel like may be sufficient, or is that something else maybe we are not addressing maybe in the pipeline? Just wondering if anyone has like thoughts of that. So I think one thing we did was, I think, static code testing, right? That's one.
Correct.
The other one is more of the playbook syntax and like all the indentation.
The indentation, the rows not written properly. So those are things that the Ansible-lint is going to catch. You have not written it in the best practice. So those are all the things that will actually be done from a developer standpoint. So this is really more, this session today is really more around looking at how people writing the playbooks are able to leverage on some of the toolings that we have to go and create playbooks that is of top-notch standard, right? Let's put it that way. So a lot of people are writing playbooks, but not necessarily in the best practice or the best way possible. And so these tools are there to help you. Things like pipelines is there as well, just to help you with the whole CI/CD development process itself. So
Yeah, not sure anyone has any other thoughts. Is there anything else do we need to address for playbook development testing, right? To make sure that before we commit or when we push it to our controllers in terms of the platform, before we can execute it, there are a set of tests being done first. Right?
Yes, type checking.
Oh, okay.
Again, the same example, right? Like everything is treated as a string in the YAML file, right? Like there's no type checking there. So I can have my IP address as a string, and I can put like 400.x.x.x, right? And it would accept it. And it would not even, so if I have a type check for an IP, then it knows that, okay, there are 4 octets in this, and the last available value would be 255.
Yeah.
Okay, you mean you want to check that whether the IP address is in the right format before you do this?
Yeah, it's basically a type, right? So if you have a YAML file and you have a variable called X, right? And you have a value there. What is that value? Is it a string? Or is it an int? Is it a float? Like at the moment, we do not have that.
It's not. Yeah.
Two kind of things to address here. I'll address the second part. The first part so the second part is IP address specifically. You can still validate, right? You do have Ansible utils IP address. And
Oh yeah, I do use that.
Yeah, so basically you can use it to address that portion. To explicitly kind of address the type like the way. It goes back how we kind of do it, right? And in a way, these are different ways of identifying, right? There are certain objects which you do in Python, right? So it goes back to the Python way of doing things, how we kind of define. there's an object, there is actually primitive standard data types. So it comes to them. So IP address comes into a not a primitive data type. So it will come under the other side. Even if you take any other kind of programming language, it will be the same because IP address is not a primitive data type. Obviously, it needs to be treated differently. That's the way we treat it is using the module which I was talking about, which I think you are already using it.
Yeah.
You're already using that filter, right?
Yeah, that filter.
Okay.
IP ADDR.
Yeah,
yes,
So this is one way you can handle inside the playbook. Outside, actually, you can add the custom routes here. Because the IP address can be 4, it can be, the IP version 6.
Yeah.
It's not always 4. I mean, at the moment, it's 4 for now.
I mean, IPv4.
So if you have IP version 6, if you're using, then it's a different. So it's all custom kind of preference or kind of filtering. So you can add that kind of check, your own checks inside using any of these tools. It's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Ansible-lint rules, it's not just the formatting rules. Okay, there are many rules which are available. To give you some examples, like checking like always using FTCM, like as a best practice, or like you are using some passwords, but then you are not doing it like no log. If a password anywhere, actually you are using some password module, it should not be logged in, right? So no log is a parameter which you use to do that. So there are rules to check that. So basically, Ansible-lint rules, there is a lot of rules which are available which you can use it on. You can write custom rules. So one of the custom rules which you can actually write yourself as well is to kind of validate some of these things, aspects. So it's very flexible to kind of add such rules.
This is another example, like the Git, Git leaks. Git leaks is something like it will automatically search for the secrets.
The secrets.
Accidentally, you put some secrets inside, for example. So the Git leaks is able to detect is an AWS secret or something like that, and it will pop. Like you have to scan it, you have to give them. So similarly, you can detect this kind of plugin inside. So let's say if someone accidentally, so you are testing, so you give the password in the playbook, you forget to remove it. Now you are pushing, right? But as per Ansible, it's just a string. But he's telling though, if it's a password string, and if you have a rule, okay, to add the no log true, something like that, you can enable that kind of rules in your Ansible testing. So when the issue is when you push it, right? So it will automatically detect, and you can even add in the pre-commit. Make sure, okay, no sensitive information is inside the playbooks or anywhere. So this is also possible. Git leaks is just an example, not the Ansible thing. It's a common thing everyone using.
Yeah, I got the idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's all these things that we are saying is more around to help you to do the development and to make sure that everything is written the way that you want it to be.
I think I have a question. So usually we hear the common concern. You have a concern on using the community collection and community modules. How you're handling that one? Actually, are you
Any
using the
concerns?
community modules or community collection, or you are using only the Red Hat certified collections?
For those actually using Ansible automation platform.
No. Even
Ansible.
Ansible.
Even Ansible. Okay, you say
Because Ansible is okay, everyone using, but still you have a concern
So
on.
because Red Hat, we provide
Okay.
certified playbooks, right? Certified content from our partners like Cisco, VMware, whatnot, right? So we have those set of playbooks, which is supported by our partners.
Yeah.
But we still understand that there are users that are also using community like Ansible Galaxy and those sorts of collections, right? So I think the question is more, what are the thoughts? Like, are you guys okay to use all these community collectors, even though we also push out, right? And we have this like downstream, right, of that Ansible Galaxy portion. But we still see, yes, there's still a lot of content that's out there in Ansible Galaxy, and we still have users using it.
So again, make the question very simple one. How many of you are using the community collections? So how you are, you have any concern on this security part, testing, how you're testing it, or whether it's against, okay, virus scanning is one thing, it's out of Ansible. You can scan for virus or some malicious code, but how you're testing whether it's suitable for your environment, right? So,
Just cautious when we are.
Yeah, so just thinking, how you're,
because you're using
it's not
the
bad
texture.
actually. It's not bad, but actually because sometimes we can.
Before we use I separately prepare another environment,
Okay.
another setup, and then ensure that is working
Oh,
as
okay.
expected. Then before I
Okay.
use it to the my actual development production.
Oh.
I don't strike away. Mainly, yeah, I have separated lab setup
Okay.
where I use and ensure it is working.
Okay. Okay. Do you think these kind of tools will help to speed up the testing process?
No, just wanted to show that I think after that, all the things that was deleted came back, right? So pretty much we could do this. And I think the light speed.
I mean,
anything else? So I think that's about it.
any questions that you guys have? I think that's the end of the demo. Yeah. Yes.
Is there any alternative way of restoring except pipelines?
Is there any? Yeah, you can run the commands as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pipeline. It's just that because the pipeline itself is more like, you do DevOps, you check for errors and rather than just running a command, right? But it can be just an Ansible playbook command or Ansible navigator command to restore.
In case the customers or environment don't have OpenShift.
Oh, it doesn't have to be OpenShift. OpenShift is just an
We happen to have a
example.
pipeline that we have
Yeah.
ready that you can use, right?
You can use
How about you
Jenkins,
use
you can
any-
use something else, you can use GitLab, doesn't matter. We use OpenShift because
We have pipelines that's there.
it's easy for us to use
It's
OpenShift.
already there, but it doesn't have to be connected.
Pipelines are good. I mean, you will know, okay, last week this code worked.
Yeah.
You had a history. Someone changed and now it's break. I mean,
So you can
there's
see
some
all the
issue.
history over here.
See all the history.
Versus you just running it.
Yeah, if you're using like bash or command line ansible-lint, or maybe you can create a bash script and run it. You can do the same thing using bash script, right?
Yeah.
But no history, no one knows, okay, it was working or not. That's why this kind of for enterprise, you need the data reporting, right? Who changed it, what changed, when changed. So yeah, this history. That's why we suggest this kind of enterprise. It can be Jenkins, it can be GitHub.
GitLab,
Yeah.
GitHub
also-
Actions,
GitLab,
GitLab CI,
It's
those
supported.
things, doesn't matter.
Let's treat like a software code, because software code we do local test, then you push it, so there will be run CI/CD pipeline for your
Yeah.
workflow, right?
That's a typical flow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Curious to check. So this one Ansible automation platform. So we have Ansible Tower, which comes from Red Hat as well. What is the difference between the Ansible Tower and the Ansible automation?
So let me try to address. So Ansible Tower was the older version of this thing. So we moved from Tower to Ansible Automation Platform when we moved to a newer architecture. So Ansible Automation Platform 2 is a newer architecture. So the name wise, yes, Ansible Tower was the old name, but the Ansible Automation Platform is the new one. When we moved, actually, we also moved to a different architecture. So that's why you see we also use like execution environments, which is container based. So we can actually scale better. Yeah. So
So
that's
this
the
is kind
difference.
of enhanced.
So you can think of it like Ansible Automation Platform is the newest version, which we are actually. Tower was the older one.
If at the end of the day, you also see our platform UI, right? It's also more in line with what you see in AWS.
Yeah.
If you
I
notice,
use
yeah.
AWS.
Yeah. So we have actually, in a way, merged towards that portion already.
Correct.
Yeah. So Ansible Automation Platform is has many components inside.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of that's why you call it as a platform. So it includes using AWS related stuff, right? That's one of the downstream. For us, it also has many other stuff as well.
Yeah,
And that's why it
like
goes back
coming
to
over
this one,
here,
right?
right?
So it has many, like we have 20 plus different kind of open source projects. Actually, we take it and we combine it and put it as a platform. That's Ansible Automation Platform. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am using AWS similar to Ansible. So for this enhanced platform, do you have any open source or?
Yeah, so Ansible Automation Platform is not one single, like I can say it's like one, or you have one, because platform itself contains a lot of other things, right? So we have 20 plus.
The automation mesh, for instance, is using Receptor. And
We have
those
different,
are
like,
all the
Receptor
different Ansible Navigator. It's all of which is like a open source project on its own.
So I guess if you ask what open source project to use, it will be AWS itself.
AWS is just a controller.
Only the UI and the control part.
It's just a controller.
Only the
right?
control part. That's it.
Everything else is like one separate
All the
project on
different
its own.
pieces.
So yeah, I guess just to end off, very simple one, right? So if you are using our Ansible Lightspeed, right, you need to first, of course, get an account. You have to put in your GitHub and all these things. So you can actually see over here that here I have the password. So you can actually go ahead.
Yeah, so Ansible Lightspeed, if you are not aware, is basically our answer to how ChatGPT were to come out playbooks today. So we work together with IBM. IBM is the IBM Watson, the AI that they have, and is leveraging that to train the model and all that, right? So when you were to prompt, you are able to come up with the playbook, right? So maybe just a brief overview, what the difference between GPT and our offering, which is what you can use today for free, right? It's available for anyone to use today. Is that we will utilize the content that we have in our certified content collections, as well as best practices playbooks itself. So we will come up that particular content for you, right? Once it's tried. So for what you can do is you can enable it. It's part of the plugin. So what he's done is he's just created the prompt, which is it will reference the name, right? And Ansible will then read it and then come up with the playbook for you, right? So you'll come up a
If you hit
playbook.
enter,
Yeah, you hit enter. Yeah, so you'll come up with the playbook for
you
you.
see over here
So-
that there's Lightspeed over here.
Yeah.
So this is the.
So that's
plugin
how you know that's
you
enabled.
to-
Yeah. So it come with content for you. And another thing that we do is similarly, what we do is we will read the entire Git folder that is here, right? So for example, you set a context for now, what is the cloud provider you're using, even though you didn't set it in that particular file. For example, in Ansible, it didn't say that it's using Azure or using AWS. It will read the entire playbook structure. If you were to declare, let's say AWS inside there, it will come out AWS playbook for you. So it does read the context that you have within other folders as well to come up with the right playbook.
The other thing to note is that you can see over here the training matches. Right? So
Yes.
if you're doing ChatGPT, for instance, it may not necessarily tell you where you're putting the thing from. Whereas in this case, you can see that it's coming from the Ansible Galaxy system roles for Linux in this case.
So at least you know where the content comes from, right? It's not searching from a random place somewhere in the web.
Much more consistent in things that you'll be getting.
So it is suggesting playbooks rather generating.
It will suggest the particular task,
Mm.
right? So in this case, it does suggest this particular task.
Yeah.
So for now, this is the, I would say, first iteration of this other project, right? It just released about a month, maybe
2-3 months.
yeah.
And you was closed beta.
It was
before
closed
that.
beta.
So right now it's available to public.
Yes. So if you want, you can just go through the plugin,
The Ansible plugin
right?
extension.
Yeah,
Still a tech
extension.
review.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tech review started 27th June. So I guess we're a month
Yeah.
into tech review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So extension settings, do check that you're on the you update it and right version. I think is here, right?
Yeah.
Just enable it,
Have to enable.
and you need to
Sign in as
sign in your the GitHub. So the GitHub is used as an authentication only, right? That's all. Of course, you can use any other Git repository for you to commit right at the end of it. Yeah, so it's just for authentication, and right now it's available for VS Code only. Yeah.
So one thing to note why we show this as well is because this is part of the developer toolkit that you can have, right? So other than the usual way of doing things, Lightspeed is something that can help you to do faster playbook creation and development. Obviously, some of the stuff that's being recommended here will also be in accordance to some of the best practices that you can have when it comes to writing the playbook. Right. So those are the things that we have.
Shall we be so far they will come up with a guidebook for
Then-
the prompt? Prompt.
Prompt.
They come up with
Do they have? I don't think so. Like a guide to do prompt engineering, right? Because right now we are thinking of what to write over here so that you can give
Yeah.
a smart answer. But I'm not sure whether we have a blog or something that talks about what to write or how.
Oh, okay, the prompt
It's
engineering.
totally natural language.
Yeah, it's yeah.
So what you put in ChatGPT will work here as well.
Yes.
So this like someone knows already, okay, copy this file to this file.
Because for ChatGPT, now the hot thing is prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering. Yes,
So
yes,
that
yes.
you get a better, more accurate answer.
But yeah, it's still being trained right now.
Probably, yeah, I think it will come later because this is still right now in the beta, right? So probably we will come up with some.
So we need your help.
Yeah.
Please sign on. You become smarter. It's free tech review.
And yeah, I think you can also give feedback. So if it
Yeah.
doesn't give the right actually kind of a task generator, then you can also give feedback to the so we can actually
Bottom one.
bottom one.
How was the experience to say it sucks and you have to say
Yeah, you
why?
can also tell why you say that it's probably not the one you expected.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
also
that's the one.
okay,
So,
same
yeah.
thing.
And then you can also
Can
tell
have
the
more
issue
actually.
type as well.
Say the type.
Like say, this is
But,
suggestion
Interesting.
prompt. So you can also give the way you
User
are
request.
putting is a prompt. You can say this prompt you gave, but then you didn't give the correct prompt.
Document.
So this will analyze by another AI or like human.
Sorry?
Human will analyze this feedback or maybe another AI will.
No, actually, these data, I think both actually. Basically, this information goes back to our team. So they kind of use this information to retrain, train our models as well, but they also look at it.
Thanks for my feedback. Maybe they'll get back to the feedback. Regardless. Yeah, I mean, those are things that we are working on right now. We wanted to show all the different possibilities tonight.
any other questions that you guys have?
All right.
Yes.
Can we have like a session that's more in depth about functional testing and verification of the playbook? Because I feel that this one is very quality checking, more of linting and styling of the thing, but it doesn't really check for the functionality of the playbook. Like what? Because I'm still quite new, so I want to make sure that the playbook I'm writing, how do I write tests for it? I feel that
Okay.
That's a.
Also, I think that's
so
that's
Ansible
a good topic.
test.
Yeah, the Ansible test, molecules,
You have
and all those
the-
things.
Yeah, Ansible test, you have this option actually.
Yeah.
Unit test and also your
Integration testing.
So the first one is sanity, the one you mentioned, the linting or the formatting style books. Then the unit test, you can do that.
yeah. I
But
think some more like in-depth examples to that. would be-
Okay.
Okay.
Give some examples.
Next meetup.
Yeah, we can try that.
Yeah.
Okay, good one.
I mean, this session was really more of just to give you a broad overview on what are the tools available, and then we selected config as code just to show that you can actually
This
use
case.
pipelines and all these things. So it's more towards the infra piece and all this stuff.
It also goes back to what you were saying, if you use a community
Yeah.
on it, right? How do you make sure that it's not disrupting your production or anything that you want to use?
This is just a community one. Let's say I push something with some comma somewhere in the Python and he's using that, it's already gone, right? I mean, there are rules already available in the Galaxy itself, but still like, the Galaxy is doing the linting. If you already have tried uploading to the Galaxy or the private automation, you can see it's linting actually. Then if something goes wrong, it won't accept the new version of your role or collection. That's very basic, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can
Yeah,
try that
this is
for
where
the next
one,
session.
maybe we can go deeper. in that.
Or the molecule, I think that's quite big.
That is what some of the customers are using actually in Australia, for instance. Because after 2 or 3 years of running Ansible, sometimes you have to make sure that the playbooks are also being checked. Especially when there's changes in the infrastructure, maybe the router or the switch gets upgraded, whether the playbook still works. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
Any other topic suggestions?
Yeah.
Also
any other
suggestions
topics?
on, yeah. I want to see.
Or anyone want to share?
Can I ask a question? How many writes automation or Ansible playbooks as part of your job? It's part of your job. Besides being a hobby, it's part of the job. Like you rely on it. I see
I think I can see
Three?
three.
Or
I see three, four. Okay,
four, right?
four. Okay, see, four.
So out of the four, right? Is it recognized or supported tooling? That means you recognize, yeah, you use Ansible. Like just an organization, if you develop applications, right? Then you all say, oh, I use Python, right? And it's recognized Python is a supported tool. So is Ansible a supported tool out of the four hands I saw? Is it a supported tool? That means your boss knows that you're writing stuff using Ansible. Basically. If your boss support, can I see a hands your boss or your organization support Ansible? Because there are people that I'm lazy, I make my life easy, right? So it's my secret weapon. I use Ansible.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, right? So I look like I got superpowers. Right? Get things done so easily. So I think I saw 4 or 5 hands, right? Roughly.
No, but I think to organizations or agencies, right? The bosses is more they just want to know the keyword automation. But what the ground engineers or the department, the engineering side or the IT arm, right, use on automation, right? They don't care.
You don't care.
They don't care. It's automation, the keyword.
Keyword is automation.
Let's say you write a paper to ask for some funding, right? It's a keyword automation, AI. Sure.
Yeah. So down here is just learning, right? Because we need to be relevant and we need to actually ensure that the tool, right, the knowledge, the awareness is reaching the people that needs them. They're understanding how people use the tool, how organizations support the tool, like what you just mentioned, right? I write a paper for funding and I need to use the right keywords, right? So basically we are developing developer tooling, right? If no organization use them, then we will slowly become not relevant. So we need to learn ourselves that need to correctly enable users or get awareness dropped out in a way. So that's good learning. That's one of them. Any other learning that I should know? We should be well aware, right? Because as we develop tools, we can't sit down here and every time we got 20 people sitting here and just 20 people. Hopefully the number will grow. So learning for me, basically, right? Because as we develop tools, we want to have more and more people embrace and adopt automation, and not to scare them away or even not well targeted. If it's not well targeted, people just do Google search, right? They won't see our tooling as well. So then we'll lose eyeballs. So that's my aim when I ask that question. Right? Understand, is it a tool that organization recognize, or they just know, hey, there's word automation and AI there. That means the management will support you or encourage you to use the tooling. That's a good one for me because we are pushing out Lightspeed to enable developers, automation developers, to be able to do things faster, do the really complex things and leave the heavy lifting to AI. So we will continue to develop AI, generative AI tooling, especially Lightspeed. But we need to know how to actually get these tools to you, to your organization.
So this Lightspeed, if I want to integrate with Visual Studio, I need to authenticate with GitHub. Which
Yes,
I
you need a
have
GitHub
our
ID.
internal GitHub repo where it is not communicating with.
No, just a GitHub ID because we rely on GitHub as a form of SSO.
It's just just an authentication. Yeah.
So if I have,
But if you have a Git that's stored somewhere else, you can always.
Okay, no, the question is, can I connect there? No, this one is actually the GitHub, the public one. Yeah,
you
this is
might
the
not
public one, not the
It's just an
enterprise, not
identity.
the enterprise.
Just authentication,
This is,
that's all.
authentication for the public.
You won't go and learn your repo or what.
Which I should not authenticate within my, I can say, code pipeline where I can say, maybe if I am using Visual Studio within my office, I should not.
You can't actually
authenticate
say connect to
public.
the public GitHub is what you're
So
saying.
how in that case, how it helps to compose when the task
Oh,
level when you.
that's end of the year when you need to pay us money.
No, I require GitHub authentication. Because
So the model, the Watson
people
X,
is-
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
the Watson X.
it's blocked.
You can own it on premise. It's our roadmap to make it available on premise where governance, data privacy, and various things that are suitable for your organization are safeguarded. So that means you put your own walls around it. Right? There's a roadmap for us to make it available. Currently, at least until end of this year, our direction is software as a service, right? Which means that you connect to IBM Watson X. And that's the quickest way and the widest way, right? Of course, software as a service, even then, right? In the roadmap at the end of the year, we also intend to be able to do content discovery and be able for you to tune and restrict data. That means data goes in to our learning models, but doesn't go up. So it's not shared, and you can actually set governance around the data model. Right? Everything goes in, it doesn't come out, isn't shared at all. You totally own it. You totally own the IP. You can even set rules. How is it being accessed by organizations? Right. So underneath what it runs is basically OpenShift data science. Underneath is OpenShift data science, which means that all the data modeling or whatever today you see in OpenShift, there's OpenShift data science, right? It's completely running on that, which means it's highly optimized and can be highly configurable by you. It's just that how soon will it be available, right? And that will means that you need to run your own data models on premise, which means you need to run OpenShift as a
OpenShift data science is available.
yeah. So this is a commitment. If it's productive for you, right? You do get ROI out of it. You should run it on premise to have the governance.
We do
around
model
it.
serving as well using, Triton and OpenVino.
And Watson X has more things
Audi
as well. Sorry, huh? Hijack the whole thing.
altogether.
Watson X has a lot of things. Do look at it as well. Watson X is quite deep as well.
Yeah.
That's Nick.
But
So,
yeah.
anything else? Any other questions that you guys have?
Yeah, but anyway, thanks for the topic suggestion. I think we will take a look at it and maybe next
See what our content.
Yeah. we'll search for some content. Hopefully it's something that's relevant. Or then do you have any scenarios that you want to suggest that we can
Not
try
really.
and do
lah.
it?
For some context, like we are trying to move some of our automation over to Ansible, so we are still in the testing phase.
Okay.
I think we have the linting pipeline all thought out.
All the sort of
So now it's just really a matter of having verification that what we are writing actually works. And we haven't really looked into that yet. So
when you say you're moving over, you were originally on another
from chef like
from Chef. Okay. So then it's more towards infrastructure kind of use case or DM provisioning and those things.
more for configuring our boxes lah.
Configuration management.
Configuration management.
Yeah, I think we'll take it back then we'll see.
Yeah.
No, I think thank you everybody for coming, right?
Before
Session.
your end, down here, I really want to actually push everyone to really go and try out like speed, okay? And then the second thing I want to actually also encourage everyone. So you see all these nice technology down here, right? Red Hat, right? Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we have the developer subscription. The developer subscription, right, gives you 16 managed node licenses, right, for developers, which means you can sign up as a completely developer. That means completely free to you because it's to encourage you to test, which means that you get to actually use the enterprise version and not AWX, not the community stuff which turns and builds every night, right? And it may break sometimes. So if you like to have a stable version of Ansible automation platform with all the stable and secure patches and fixes and even access to our customer portal, right? You can actually see all the all the fixes and all the forums inside there, but you cannot log a support ticket. That's it, right? That's all. But you get free developer subscription. I really encourage you to go and play with it because playing AWX and it's like driving a Toyota and driving a Ferrari is two different things, right? So please test it out. You may like it, right? And it gives you 16 managed nodes for free, which is quite a lot to use for non-production use. Okay, so do think about it. Just search Red Hat Enterprise Linux developer subscription. You will land there and you just sign up with any email ID, right? You will get to it. Downloads, patches, fixes, customer portal. Okay, so I will encourage you to try it out. Okay. Thank you. That's
Thank
all.
you all.
Thank you.